enlightening us with his thoughts.
So I will begin with the customary prayer, which is well known to everybody. This is a universal prayer which the teacher and the disciple in those days, they used to, what we call now one-on-one, sit together and pray to the Supreme Being if you believe in one. If you do not believe in one, even that is good enough. You know, Sri Ramakrishna, the guru of Swami Vivekananda, was confronted by a non-believer. He said, I don't believe in God, so why should I pray? How can I pray? Then Sri Ramakrishna gave him a very simple formula. Oh God, if you exist, please listen to this prayer. So you have any objection to praying like this? Then he said no. Then he started praying. Then he was a transformed person. So whether we believe in God and God, whatever form, you have to believe in laws of nature. And you have to believe the sun will rise exactly at the moment at which it is supposed to rise. You have to believe the earth will rotate in exactly the same manner in which nature has asked it to rotate. So the belief and faith in laws of nature is what we call science. And belief in that power which runs nature is what we call religion. If nature is self-contained and no other power is required apart from nature to move it, even that would mean there is something intrinsic to nature which makes it function exactly in the way it is functioning. So with this context, let us begin this small prayer. The teacher and the disciple together recite this prayer, invoking the blessings of the Supreme Being for their learning, teaching be effective and illuminative. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Supreme Being protect us both by revealing to us the true nature of knowledge. May the Supreme Being protect us both by revealing to us the application of that knowledge for the good of mankind. May we both strive together for the acquisition of knowledge and wisdom. May the knowledge and wisdom that we acquire be effective and illuminative. May there be no disharmony between us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So I am singularly delighted to be here and to meet some of the best minds that India has produced and will produce in future, and to interact with them and to share my thoughts on science and religion, or science and Vedanta. As has been described, science studies the external world, the world in which we live. What we see in the world consists of only two things. This was the statement of Shankaracharya, who was one of the greatest minds which India has produced, one of the greatest philosophers of all time, who propounded what is known as the Advaita philosophy. That the world consists of is only you and me. Is there anything else in the world? Yushmadasmat pratyayoho vishay vishayanoho tamaprakashavad viruddha svabhavadva. That is the beginning of what he called the bhashya, the commentary and the Brahma Sutras. He says Yushmat means you, Asmat means I. I think some of you must have been exposed to Sanskrit grammar, the preliminary grammar in your school days. Yushmat Shabda and Asmat Shabda. Asmat begins with Aham Avam Vayam, and Yushmat is Tvam Yuvam Yuyam. Tvam is you, Aham is I. All that the world consists of is the other and me, the self and the other. I, as a human being, I look at this world, and the world as an object is being looked at, understood, investigated, smelt, tasted, heard by me. So, if you understand this where the simplest of concepts of our existence and life, then everything falls in place. You may ask, what is the need of asking such questions? Why should you need to know about life and existence? We are absolutely happy. But you can't be happy unless you really understand certain fundamental things about yourself. This question just can't be postponed, evaded, wished away by a thinking, rational human being. The animals, the cats and the dogs and the birds and the worms do not ask these fundamental questions about how they live, where they came from, what is the destiny of human existence. They don't ask such questions. We are absolutely satisfied to be carried away by instincts which nature has endowed them with. But human beings ask certain fundamental questions about why we are what we are. So, the Upanishadic rishis, what called the Vedanta, did not invent a philosophy. It was not a theology, it was not a philosophy, it was not metaphysics. It was a simple questioning of certain fundamental facts about our existence. You question certain very fundamental things, you interrogate, you ask very simple questions, perhaps simplistic enough to be called stupid. But the answers which come out of these questions are so profound. Albert Einstein was asked once, see, how did you come upon this extraordinary theory of the relativity? You know, he had the general theory and the special theory of relativity. One of the greatest constructs of the human mind about space, time and causation and gravitation. It's unmatched in its brilliance and beauty, apart from the mathematical and the scientific rigor. Einstein very simply answered, you see, when we are young, as children we ask very simple questions and nagging stupid questions of our parents, very uncomfortable questions. And our parents say, stop asking such questions, you will know when you grow old. When you grow old, because of the so-called education and knowledge that they acquire, you become too clever to ask such questions. You wish them away as meaningless, but Einstein said, I did not forget those stupid questions which I had in mind when I was a boy or a kid, and kept on asking them. The answer which I got was the theory of relativity, about space, about time. So, these are fundamental things about existence which we know, but we don't investigate. What is time? You don't have an answer, but you know what is time. So, there is something which you know, but you can't analyze that answer. So, the Upanishadic rishis ask very simple questions, like, for example, when I open my eyes, how is it that I see? How is it that the ears are able to hear? How is it that my mind is able to think? Kene shitam patati preshitam manah kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha kene shitam vachamimam vadanti chakshusrotram kavudevo yunakti. Very simple questions. How is it that I am able to see? How is it that I am able to hear? How is it that my mind is able to think? And then from there on, they investigated and came up with an extraordinary power within a human being, which is able to, through which you are able to see, you are able to hear, you are able to intuit. So, the faculties which a human being possesses in investigating and knowing the external world are to be known and investigated, but it is you. Why should we analyze and study Vedanta, religion or philosophy? It's simply because that is a subject which is most interesting. What would you normally like to do? You would dwell and contemplate on something which you love. Suppose you have a beautiful object which you love madly, you would constantly be thinking about it, talking about it, knowing more about it. The object of your adoration, the object of your love, the object which draws your heart will always be the object which you would like to know more and more about. What is the most beloved object in life? You tell me. This question was asked in the Upanishads. What is it that you like most in life? A survey was made by the American Psychologists Association. The survey was, what is the most frequently used English word? The answer, as you will easily guess, is the I. How many thousands of times everybody uses this I? I did this, I do this, I did it yesterday, the I. The most frequently used word, because it is the most frequently intuited, most familiar object in your life. I want to go to the Himalayas now and meditate. I want to go to the Kumbh Mela and have a dip in the Ganges and the Triveni Sangam. Are you taking somebody with you? No, I am going alone. But are you going with you? This question has no meaning, because you have to go with yourself. I can't run away from myself because I am I. So the most beloved object in the universe is me. Everybody loves himself or herself the most. Therefore, Yajnavalkya talks about it in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad when he says, it is not because of the husband that the husband is loved by the wife, but because of the self which is in the wife. It is not because of the wife that the husband loves the wife, because of the self. Nava are patyukkamaya patipriyo bhavatyat manustu kamaya patipriyo bhavati. Nava are jayaya kamaya jaya priya bhavatyat manustu kamaya jaya priya bhavati. Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanustu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atma va are drashtavya shrodhavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha. So it is because of the self which everybody is dear to you. Because you love yourself, and therefore you love everybody in and through yourself. And therefore the self has to be investigated, to be known. The least known and the most beloved is the I. You know it, but you do not know what it is. You naturally cling to it, you know what it is, because it is you. There are certain objects which are known but not investigated, because the I cannot be investigated as an object. How do you know that you have a pair of eyes? Can you prove it? I know I have eyes. How do you know? What you say in the mirror is not the reflection. You have a pair of eyes because it is you are the I. It is me, and therefore you know it. So there are two kinds of knowing according to science as well as Vedanta. One is knowing as an object, the other is knowing because you are it. Knowing by becoming and knowing as an object. So the Yushmat and the Asmat, Yushmat is the object, Asmat is the subject. The interaction between the subject and the object is what is called knowledge.